you an employee, if you are, you might find this video useful. It's to do with an observation that I've made recently, and it's from, as I say, observations that I've made from meeting employees, various employees with various problems. Firstly, however, I want to tell you about a man, a former prominent Viennese psychiatrist called Viktor Frankl. Frankel wrote a book called A Search for Meaning, or what's it called at all? The Man's Search for Meaning, it's called. Frankel was sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp, and in fact he spent time there in 3 different concentration camps. But Frankel noticed that the men who coped best with the experience, or who didn't cope, these were the men who gave away their last piece of bread. These were people who comforted others. Frankel noticed that everything can be taken away from us. All of our possessions, our family. Frankel lost his family, he lost his wife, his pregnant wife, and all of his children in the gas chambers. Frankel himself was in 3 different concentration camps. But he noticed that the people who survived gave away the last piece of bread and tried to comfort others. And he noticed that the sort of person that the concentration camp prisoner became was the result of an inner decision and not of the circumstances or camp influences alone. In other words, Frankel's central thesis of his book, and it's well worth reading, Man's Search for Meaning, is that we choose how we react in any particular circumstance or circumstances. We do not choose the circumstances. We find ourselves in all sorts of various difficult circumstances, but we can choose as human beings how we react to these circumstances. And that's what Frankel's book is about. It's about a search for meaning in life, and his observation from the concentration camps. He spent time in 3 of them, Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and another one. He noticed that the people who survived best were those who chose positively how they reacted to their circumstances and who tried to help others. The reason that I'm talking about this book is because of the observation I've made about employees that I have come across in the last, let's just say for the sake of argument, 12 months. Very, very distinct situations have arisen, similar situations, and it is like this. The person in the job has a difficulty or a problem or a personality clash or an issue with another person in the job. And what they do is they become obsessive about it. They become obsessive about it to the point where they run the risk of overreacting out of the job. They run the risk of overreacting or over-talking or talking themselves out of a job because of the impact or effect that another person has on them. We all have our various people in work, etc., and other walks of life with whom we clash. We can overreact. The situations that I have seen, if the employees concerned could only see the difficulty that they have, the problems that they have, from, say, a 10,000-foot view, rather than being down in the trenches, as it were, fighting with the other person and having this personality clash and overreacting. Rather than doing that, if they could only see from a height of, say, 10,000 feet or 10,000 yards, that the problem that they have, essentially what they're doing is they're becoming obsessive and they are overreacting to the situation. They are losing all rational thought. They're reacting poorly to the circumstances. So like Frankel, employees have a choice about how they react to particular circumstances. And what I have noticed, sadly, is that some employees get so wound up with a particular issue, a particular problem, a particular colleague, a particular manager, that they end up overreacting to the point where they run the risk of talking themselves or acting their way out of a job. And it saddens me, because if they could only step back and look at the thing logically and rationally, and perhaps exercise a bit of self-discipline and a bit of self-control. I know it's easy for me to say, but if they could only see the problem that they have, that they see as a mountain, if they could only see it in true perspective, that it's simply an issue with a manager, it's an issue with a colleague, but it doesn't mean that you have to act in a way that you ultimately end up making yourself ill, perhaps leaving your job, a perfectly good job, and in circumstances where you, the employee, have done nothing wrong. But I would ask employees, particularly if they have an issue in work, if they have an issue with another employee, to try to maybe get a second or third opinion from somebody else from outside the situation, to look at it and listen to the advice, because there is a danger that you can become obsessed with your particular problem, you can become obsessed with a particular individual, and you can overreact. What I would like you to do is to take into account Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, or Man's Search for Meaning in Life, or whatever, and the lesson that he learned from the appalling time that he had in the concentration camps. And the lesson that he learned was that everything can be taken away from you as a person except your ability to decide how you react in any given circumstance. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and you might be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel.